up again, everybody? I'm Clayton. You're listening to Ages of Fear podcast number 39, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. Released in 2013, directed by John Wesenhop. The budget for the film was $20 million. The movie grossed $47.3 million, giving it a net gain of $27.3 million. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well wherever you are. I want to give a special thank you to all my new subscribers. Thank you very much for hitting that subscribe button, choosing to come kick it with me here in Ages of Fear. I'm very glad to have you, and thank you for being part of the family. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying all the content. Also, let me give a few recommendations for all of you. If you're a fan of horror and you're looking for other awesome horror channels, let me recommend Movies and Beyond to you with Michael. Michael's a great guy. He's got great content. You can now be a member of Movies and Beyond, so go do that. Hit that like button, subscribe to Michael's awesome channel, and enjoy all the amazing content that he's putting out. Also, The Bearded Entertainment with Eric, another great horror channel with great content for you all to enjoy. Eric's another good dude. Go subscribe and check out The Bearded Entertainment with all of his awesome content. And if you're just a fan of movies in general and you want to tune in to good movie reviews, I would recommend Brian Lomax to you. Brian is a good friend of mine. We've had him on Ages of Fear. He's a great dude, and he's got an awesome channel as well. He does all kinds of movie reviews, ranking videos, live streams, Q&As. Brian's doing it all. So go check out Brian Lomax movie channel and hit that like and subscribe button to him as well. All right. All that out of the way, let's get into Texas Chainsaw 3D. So this one released in 2013, the first Texas movie released in the 2010s. We have about a 7-year gap between the beginning and Texas Chainsaw 3D. So it's been a minute since there was a new Texas movie released up to this point. And they decided to do things a little bit different with this movie. So I'm gonna get into this movie, kind of give my thoughts on it, talk about the positives and negatives with it, and just give my opinion. And just as a reminder, this is just my opinion, guys. There's no need or reason to get upset or offended by anything that I say. It's just my opinion. You're welcome to your opinion, and I would love to hear your opinion on this movie in the comments section. All I ask is that you be respectful to my opinion, and I will be respectful to yours. All right, so the reason we're going through the TCM movies is because it is 50 years of Texas this year. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre released in 1974. It's now 2024, putting us at 50 years of Texas. So if you're a fan of this franchise, hopefully you are enjoying this series so far. I try to give my honest thoughts on all these movies. I told you guys before, I keep it 100 with you guys. I'm going to give you my honest thoughts and takes on these movies and let you know what I think of them. So we're on to Texas Chainsaw 3D. So getting into this movie, as always, I start with the positives and I move into the negatives, and then I give my overall rating of the movie. So with Texas Chainsaw 3D, getting into the positives with this movie, I do think that this movie does have some things going for it. I do think it does get some things right. And, there's going to be a lot of negatives that I have to talk about, but I try to always find something good in the movie that I'm reviewing, because I do want to at least respect the effort that goes into making a film. It's never an easy thing to do. Sorry, got a mosquito or gnat in here. It's never an easy thing to do to make a movie. I get that. So I never want to just totally, you know, crap on someone's work, on someone's art. Film is a form of art. It's a form of entertainment. And I want to at least try to respect the effort that goes into someone's film, that they put a lot of hours and a lot of time and a lot of resources into making. So I try to find at least something positive to say about whatever movie it is that I'm reviewing. And I do think Texas Chainsaw 3D does have some good things about it. Some things that I do like with this movie. One of them is Leatherface. I do really like Leatherface in this movie. Played by Dan Yeager. I do think he does a really good job as Leatherface in his performance of Leatherface. He's very aggressive. He's very mean. He's very, he doesn't pull his punches at all in this movie. And he is a frightening character, a truly frightening character. I like that they kind of remove Leatherface from the Sawyer family in this one to where you really just have Leatherface as the main villain, as the main killer in this movie, because I feel like that's kind of the way it should be. I'm under the impression that Leatherface should be front and center of the family in a Texas Chainsaw movie. I feel like he should be the most frightening character in the movie, and I feel like there have been some Texas movies where Leatherface kind of takes a back seat to other members of the Sawyer or Hoyt family, whichever family you're going with. With Texas Chainsaw 3D, they make Leatherface front and center. He is the main character in this movie, the main villain. And he gets more screen time because of that, and he's more frightening because of that. We're not going to get any scenes with him being bullied or pushed around by his family members. He is the one that everyone's afraid of in this movie, and I like that. I feel like that's the way it should be. So I think that they handled Leatherface well in this movie. They made him scary. They made him big, imposing, intimidating, frightening, all of that stuff. I like the performance by Dan Yeager as Leatherface. I like the look of Leatherface. I actually like what he's rocking in this movie. The red shirt, symbolizing, I think the blood and the violence that he projects. I'm a fan of the mask in this one. I think the mask actually looks good. It looks, kind of eerie and frightening a little bit. Creepy look, creepy mask that he's wearing. So I do like the look of Leatherface in this movie too. And that wins you a lot of points, honestly. When I come to a Texas movie, I want to see Leatherface, and I want to see a good Leatherface. And when I come to a Friday movie, I want to see Jason, and I want to see a good Jason. If I come to a Halloween movie, I want to see Michael, and I want to see a good Michael. So when you get the main slasher villain right, and you handle them well, and you get the look of them right, that's going to win you a lot of points in my overall rating of the film. So that is a big positive for me, is that they did get Leatherface right, in my opinion. Alexandra Daddario, who's kind of the final girl, the main girl that we're following in this movie, I think she does a good job. I think she gives a good performance. She's a very likable character. I can get behind her. I don't think she's not really annoying. I don't necessarily think she's the smartest character in the world, and I'll get into some of the reasons of that when I get to the negatives, but she's not an annoying character. I can cheer for her. She's got a very kind of innocent disposition about her. And I thought she gave a fine performance as well. So she was a positive for me. And the kills are another positive. I up to this point, I would say Texas Chainsaw 3D is the most bloody and visceral film of the Texas franchise so far. At least the unrated version is. Honestly, I don't know that I've ever checked out the theatrical version of this movie. I think I've only ever seen the unrated cut, so I don't know what is left out in the theatrical cut. But in the version that I've seen, the unrated cut, this is a very bloody, grotesque, visceral experience in film. So, and I like that. I think it fits this franchise well. I think you need that there in order to get across the emotion and the impact that the story it brings with it. So the kills were good for me, man. That's another strong positive for me. So all those are my positives for the film. I know that's not a whole lot of positives, but they are strong positives. And where the things that it gets right, I do think it gets very right, and it does win a lot of points for those positives. So moving on to the negatives that I have with this film, and I do have to say there are quite a bit of negatives with this movie. I don't think this is necessarily a very well made movie. There's a lot of writing issues with this movie. There's several directorial issues with this movie. There's some acting issues with this movie. I don't think it's a very well made film. And it had a $20 million budget. And that's unfortunate, because with a $20 million budget, you should be able to make a pretty kick-ass Texas movie. And especially when you look at the fact that there have been movies in this franchise that had a lot less of a budget and made a lot better of a film with much less to work with. So with a $20 million budget, you really don't have any excuses at that point to make a bad film. So I do have to take that into consideration as well when I'm reviewing this movie. And unfortunately, there are a lot of negatives with this film. I'm not going to go into every single negative, because this would probably be like an hour-long video if I went into every negative with this movie. Just know there's a lot wrong with the writing and the script and the directing in this movie. I'll just kind of hit on a few of the issues that I had and then move on from there. So one of the issues with this movie is in the writing department is with the execution of the story, because this story is essentially, they kind of pull a Halloween 2018 before Halloween 2018, because this was released in 2013. Halloween 2018 obviously was released in 2018, but the premise is kind of the same in the sense that they try to make this movie a sequel to the first Texas movie. So they kind of ignore everything that came after that original Texas movie and just try to make this a continuation of that original Texas movie. I mean, they pick up right from, a Sally riding away in the back of the truck from the first movie and pick up from there. So it is a direct sequel to the original Texas movie. The problem, though, is in the execution of the story and of the script, because if this is a direct sequel, the original was took place in the 70s, 1973. It was released in 1974, but the story takes place in 1973. This movie, Alexandra Daddario's character is in her early 20s. She's approximately college age in the events of this film. So we're looking about 20 years, 2021 for Alexandra's character in this movie. Well, the problem is, if she's only about 20 years old, that means that the story should be taking place in the early 90s, 93, 94, somewhere around there. That's, that would be about 20 years after the events of the original. But this movie is very clearly set in the time that this movie was released in the 2010s, because we see cell phones. We see Apple devices used in this movie, cell phones that are, iPhones used in this movie. So this is obviously, in the present time that this movie was released. So this is 40 years removed from the events of the original Texas movie. So why is Alexandra Daddario's character only in her early 20s? If this movie is taking place 40 years after the events of the first one, and if this is supposed to be taking place 20 years after the original film, then why are we seeing cell phones in the 90s? Why are there, iPhones in 1993? It was not a very well thought out story there. It was not the execution was not well handled in the directing, and the story in the script was very unclear about when exactly these events are supposed to be taking place. That's a big issue with this movie. There's not an exact time frame, like in a lot of movies. After the opening, scene, they'll have a 20 years later, or like in the original Halloween, after we see Michael kill his sister, it shows on the screen 15 years later. So we know that the events following are 15 years after, those events. We don't get any of that in this movie. We have to just kind of assume based on what we're seeing when these events are taking place. So yeah, really messy writing there with the story, and not being very clear and laying out when exactly the events of this movie are to take place. That's a big issue for me. We also have this weird kind of like affair scandal that's going on between Alexandra Daddario's character and her friend Nikki in this movie. Nikki and Alexandra's boyfriend in the movie, I forget his character's name, are kind of having this affair together behind Heather's back. And typically, if you're going to do that in a movie, you want that plot to serve a purpose for the story, for the film. But they do nothing with it. So it's like, so then why did you put it in there? Like, if there's no payoff, if Alexander Daddario's character is not going to find out about their affair, if it's not going to impact the lead character or serve the story any purpose, then why put it in there? It's just there, for no reason at all. If anything, it's making you as a viewer not like either of these characters at all. So you don't really care. There's no emotional impact when they die, because you see what they're doing behind Heather's back, and you're like, well, okay, you just completely taken me out of liking either of these characters now. But it also doesn't serve any purpose for the story. That's what's confusing about it. Like, if you're going to put that in there, make it serve a purpose. Have it have an impact for our lead character. Have a purpose for the story, and it doesn't. It's just there for no reason at all. That's just bad script writing there, to be honest with you. You also have an issue for me. This is something that bothers me with the movie. This really bothers me, and it's the fact that they try to essentially turn the person that's supposed to be the bad guy into the good guy, and the people that are supposed to be the good guys into the bad guys. Because what they do is they essentially say that the people of this town that Leatherface is living in, that they're actually the bad people. They're actually the ones that burned Leatherface's family. They're actually the ones that bullied him and treated him bad and made him into the monster killer that he is. And that he's actually the good guy just trying to defend himself, just trying to, defend his family's cause. When in all actuality, no, Leatherface is the monster. And the victims of the massacre are the victims. They're the people that we should be empathizing with. They're the people that should be the good guys, the people that, we should be having some type of emotional connection with. Instead, they're turned into the douchebags who are just, like the mayor, the one officer, cop guy that's working for him, and just all the characters in the beginning who are involved in burning the house down. Like, these are all deplorable characters, and it's essentially making the people of this town who were actually the victims of these massacres into the unlikable villains of the movie. And it's actually trying to create some type of emotional empathy for Leatherface instead. And I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of stories that try to make people that would be truly victims into the people that are the bad guys and the predators, the people, the sick, twisted people actually preying on innocent people, into the victims and into the people that you're supposed to be feeling some type of emotional connection with. No, I'm not interested in that. So that was another issue for me with this film that I didn't like. And then there's just, you have characters doing stupid things in this movie. Like Alexandra Daddario's character, while she is a likable character, and, I do think she gives a good performance, the hitchhiker that they pick up, they take to her new house, this mansion that she's been given by her mother. And what did they do when they get there? They literally let this hitchhiker, this complete stranger who they don't know, they let him just stay in that mansion by himself as they go off into town with the keys. Why? Like, that, to me, that is the dumbest, stupidest decision that you could do. Like, as a character, why would you leave a stranger who you don't know at your new property, mansion property, with the keys by himself as you go into town? I mean, am I the only one that sees that as the worst decision, worst mistake that you could make? And then they come back and they're like, oh, well, he betrayed our trust. He stole all the stuff. Yeah, no shit. Because this was a complete stranger. It's not like you created any type of rapport with this guy. Like, you've only known him for like a day, and you're just gonna let him stay at your new mansion by himself with the keys as you drive into town? No, that screams stupidity and ignorance on a deep level. So yeah, it's just bad writing, guys. It's just bad writing all throughout this film. And yeah. And then there's also the question with, like, how Leatherface survived in the first place. Like, how did he survive the events, the house burning down? So, in the beginning of the movie, we see the group of the townspeople come together when the cops show up to the Sawyer house, and they essentially burn the house down, and burn the Sawyer house down with the family inside. Leatherface being one of those people that was inside, but somehow he got out and no one knew about it, even though, as they say later on in the film, he's this big 6'5", 300 plus pound guy, and no one saw him run out of the house. Like, even when the house burned, no one saw him running, out of the back of the house. No one notice that he escaped. I find that very hard to believe that he would have gotten out, or why he was the only one that would have gotten out, or how he would have even survived all the gunfire of all the people that were shooting the family from outside the house. I don't know. I guess he's just, it has to be there in order to make the script work. And then you have the officer there at the house as these people are throwing, fire bombs into the Sawyer house, and he's not arresting any of these people. Like they literally just committed arson. They literally are accomplices for murder, and he's not arresting any of them. He's just standing there. All he does is pushes the one guy and gets in his face a little bit. Like, dude, you're just gonna let this go? Like, you have literal murderers on your hand, like in arson. Like, and it's just like he just lets it go, doesn't arrest them. Yeah, it's a lot to ask. It's a big ask for me to get on board with that. Yeah, just really, really bad writing here, guys, and directing. Again, because if the directing was good, we should have had some type of clarification as to when these events were taking place, and we don't get that. If it was supposed to be in the 90s, as the script and stories is kind of seeming to be, that's kind of when the story's supposed to be taking place. Why do we have iPhones in this story? And if it's supposed to be 40 years into the future, in the present day, why is our main girl only 20 years old? How is she only 20 years old? And why are we not told that in the story? So, yeah, just bad writing, not great directing, some bad performances by some of the peripheral characters in the movie, actors in the movie. Yeah, just not very good. Not very good. So, yeah, I'll end it there. Trust me, there are quite a bit of other negatives I could get into, but for the sake of time, I'll just leave it at that. My overall rating here, guys, is 2 stars for Texas Chainsaw 3D. And the reason it's 2 stars and not lower than that is because, as I mentioned with the positives, the things that it gets right, it gets very right. And those are big positives. If you're going to have certain things, certain positives in the movies, those are the positives that you would want to have. A good Leatherface that's handled well, looks good, and good kills that are also done well. And it gets both of those right. And it is still mildly entertaining. So for those reasons, I do give it 2 stars, but all the negatives working against it is going to keep it from being anything higher than that for me. So 2 stars, guys. That's my overall rating for Texas Chainsaw 3D. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know anything and everything you want to say in the comment section. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until next time, you know what it is. Kick it and rock on.